Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in each of our lives when we stand at the quiet crossroads between being seen and being invisible. In these moments, we are called not to react, not to fight, but to wake up. Ladies and gentlemen, when faced with being ignored, ask yourself not, why did he not see me? But instead, there is a silent truth that often goes unnoticed in the rush of relationships, in the longing for connection, and in the subtle fear of being left unseen. Your self-worth is not something that can be given, taken, or negotiated. It is already complete within you, awaiting only your recognition. When we interact with others, especially those whose attention and validation we desire, it becomes dangerously easy to make their acknowledgement the mirror through which we see ourselves. Their smiles, their words, their gestures, their presence, these things can become addictive affirmations that we exist, that we matter, that we are enough. And when these affirmations are withheld, when someone ignores us, turns away, or shows indifference, it can feel as though a fundamental part of our being has been rejected. It can feel as though something vital has been stolen. But nothing essential is ever stolen. What is true and eternal within you does not disappear because another fails to recognize it. Self-worth is like the light of the sun. Whether clouds pass before it, whether night falls for a time, the sun itself remains unchanged. Its radiance is intrinsic. Its existence is not dependent on who notices it or who benefits from its warmth. When you anchor yourself in the awareness of your own inherent value, you free yourself from the exhausting need to be constantly validated by the outer world. You no longer bargain with your spirit. You no longer offer your dignity on the altar of someone else's fleeting attention. You begin to realize that no person, no circumstance, no shifting emotion in another can alter the truth of your existence. In moments of being ignored, it is tempting to fall into self-doubt. The mind will whisper stories. You are not enough. You are not interesting. You are not wanted. These stories are ancient echoes of a collective human pain, a pain that has misunderstood worth as something conditional, something earned, something precarious. Yet, in reality, these thoughts are not facts. They are not the voice of truth. They are merely the passing winds of unconscious conditioning. To teach someone the price of ignoring you, you must first deeply teach yourself that your value does not fluctuate with their attention. It is only when you stand unmoved, rooted in your own being, that you emanate a different energy, an energy that others instinctively recognize as sovereign and whole. Think of a great tree standing in a wide open field. It does not move because the winds blow. It does not seek approval from the sky or the earth or the travelers who pass by. It simply exists, fully itself, offering shade, offering presence, offering beauty, yet utterly indifferent whether it is admired or overlooked. The tree's existence is its declaration of worth. In practical terms, this means recognizing when you are tempted to chase after those who withdraw. It means becoming aware of the subtle or not so subtle compromises you might make, changing yourself to fit their preferences, shrinking yourself to avoid their disapproval, overgiving to win back their affection. These actions may seem harmless, but in truth, they are costly transactions. Each time you bargain your authenticity for approval, you diminish your own relationship with yourself. Instead, the task is to return again and again to the sanctuary within, to sit with yourself in stillness, to feel your breath, your aliveness, the simple, silent miracle of existing, to sense the space within you that has never been hurt, never been lacking, and never been in need of anyone's validation. From that space, you remember, I am whole, I am enough, I am already complete. In this state of remembrance, interactions with others take on a different tone. You do not approach them as a beggar asking for scraps of affection. You approach as an equal, offering the gift of your presence freely, without demand, without fear. And when someone cannot meet you there, when someone turns away or shows indifference, you feel a deep peace rather than a desperate void. Their inability to see you does not cause you to forget who you are. This is not arrogance. It is not pride. It is humility in its highest form. the humility of knowing that your worth is not an achievement, but a fact of your existence. Furthermore, when you embody this truth, you become a silent teacher. Without saying a word, without seeking revenge or engaging in petty tactics, you show others that you are not someone whose attention and love are prizes to be won cheaply. You reveal, by your very way of being, that connection with you is a privilege, not an entitlement. Over time, those who are meant to remain in your life will rise to meet this energy. They will see the light you carry, and they will honor it naturally. Those who cannot or will not, you will release without bitterness, trusting that their departure clears space for deeper, truer relationships to enter. Thus, teaching the price of ignoring you is not about teaching them a lesson through force or manipulation. It is about embodying a consciousness so deeply rooted in self-worth that others are forced to reckon with the quiet majesty of it. In your unshakable presence, they will either awaken to their own higher nature or drift away, but regardless of what they choose, you remain whole, radiant. Okay. The deepest truth is this: you are already what you seek. Nothing and no one can add to you. Nothing and no one can diminish you. Once you realize this, self-worth ceases to be a negotiation. It simply becomes the atmosphere you live in. Like the air, like the light, like life itself. There is a profound intelligence in silence that words often fail to capture. In our ordinary lives, we are trained to believe that communication requires noise, explanations, justifications, arguments, confessions.
Yeah.
Yet the deepest form of communication, the most transformative form of teaching, often happens not through the spoken word, but through the absence of it. Silence is not emptiness. It is not passive. True silence holds an active living energy. It speaks with a voice beyond language. It can create understanding more deeply than endless conversations ever could. When someone ignores you, the immediate impulse might be to fill the gap with sound, to ask, to protest, to demand attention, to explain yourself. But to respond with silence, conscious, awake silence, is to engage in a different and higher form of dialogue. Through silence, you teach not by force, but by reflection. You create a space, a mirror, in which the other person must meet themselves. Without your words to distract them, without your energy to feed their neglect, they are left alone with their own choices. It is in that quiet space that the seeds of realization are planted. When someone ignores you and you respond not with pleading or anger, but with calm withdrawal, you remove yourself as a participant in their unconscious behavior. You are no longer feeding the dynamic that allows them to undervalue your presence. Instead, your silence becomes a powerful, non-verbal statement. I will not compete for your attention. I will not diminish myself to remind you of my worth. In that moment, you claim your space. You stand firm in your dignity, and whether they realize it immediately or not, something shifts. In the absence of your attention, they feel the subtle but profound impact of what they have lost. It is a lesson far more powerful than any spoken reproach could deliver. Yet to wield silence as a teacher requires that you first become comfortable with silence within yourself. Many people are deeply uneasy with quiet. They rush to fill it with words, with actions, with distractions, because silence confronts them with themselves. But if you can sit in your own company without fear, if you can rest in the stillness of your own being without craving external noise, you have mastered a power that very few possess. Silence teaches you patience. It teaches you trust in yourself, trust in the natural unfolding of life. When you refrain from reacting immediately, when you choose to wait and watch instead of rushing to force outcomes, you step into alignment with a greater intelligence. You begin to see that not all lessons must be shouted, some must be lived. Imagine a clear, still pond. When agitated, it becomes cloudy, distorted, chaotic. But when left undisturbed, it naturally settles, revealing its true depths. In the same way, silence the truth of any situation to rise to the surface. In time, the one who ignored you will either recognize the emptiness they created in their life by your absence, or they will not. Either way, your silence has preserved your peace, your integrity, your inner clarity. It is important, however, to distinguish between silence born of strength and silence born of fear. True silence does not shrink. It does not cower. It does not sulk. True silence stands tall, rooted, serene. It does not use the absence of words as a weapon, but as a simple reflection of self-respect. When you fall into bitterness or the silent treatment as a form of manipulation, you are still trapped in the cycle of unconscious reactivity. But when you choose silence from a place of inner fullness, you transcend the need to prove or defend yourself. In this way, silence is not a punishment for the other. It is a gift to yourself. It is the gift of non-engagement with energies that seek to diminish you. There is also a profound humility in silence. It acknowledges that not all things can be solved through human effort alone. It leaves space for grace, for unexpected realizations, for inner transformations to occur in their own time. Sometimes the most compassionate act, for yourself and for the other, is to step back and allow the natural consequences of their actions to unfold without your interference. When you are silent, you also create an opportunity for genuine connection to arise, if it is meant to. For in the absence of forced dialogue, only authentic desire to reconnect will move the other person toward you. If they reach out, it is not because they were pressured, but because something real within them was stirred. And if they do not, you are spared the exhaustion of dragging someone unwillingly into your life. Thus, silence filters out what is not meant for you. It protects you from the hollow victories of coerced affection. It preserves the sanctity of true relationships, those built not on demand but on mutual recognition. In a world addicted to noise, silence is revolutionary. It is a radical act of faith, faith that what is true needs no defense, faith that what is meant for you will find you without struggle, faith that your worth is self-sustaining and not dependent on being constantly affirmed. So when you are ignored, remember that you are being offered a sacred choice. You can choose to abandon yourself in the pursuit of being seen, or you can choose to remain centered in your own being. Choose the latter. I choose to speak through your stillness. In time, the world will learn, as all who come into contact with true presence eventually do, that there is a price to ignoring those who have learned to dwell in the power of silence. And that price is the loss of something irreplaceable, the presence of someone who knows their own worth. Detachment is often misunderstood as coldness, indifference, or withdrawal from the world. But in its true form, detachment is not about turning away from life. It is about not allowing your peace to be dependent on the actions, behaviors, or opinions of others. It is a state of inner freedom, a profound sense of clarity that arises when you no longer tie your emotional well-being to external circumstances. When we are deeply attached to something, whether it's the need for approval, the desire for attention, or even the craving for love, we entangle ourselves in a web of dependency. We begin to believe that our happiness, our sense of worth, our identity is something that can be taken from us or granted by someone else. The truth, however, is that the only source of lasting fulfillment is within ourselves, independent of the shifting tides of external validation. Detachment, in its highest form, is a state of awareness. It is the ability to observe what happens in the world around you without becoming enmeshed in it. It's the capacity to witness the actions and words of others without allowing them to define your inner peace. When someone ignores you, for example, detachment does not mean that you become passive or unfeeling. Rather, it means that you recognize their behavior as their own, and you no longer allow it to disturb your own sense of balance. This sense of detachment brings clarity. When we are emotionally entangled, we become clouded. Our minds become overrun with questions. Why did they ignore me? What did I do wrong? How can I make them care? These questions keep us trapped in a cycle of confusion, anxiety, and even self-doubt. We cannot see clearly, and therefore we cannot make decisions that are in alignment with our highest truth. But when we detach from the need for external validation, we create the space necessary for clarity to emerge. We are no longer consumed by what other people think or how they behave. We start to understand that their actions, their words, are reflections of their own inner world, not ours. When someone ignores you, it no longer feels like a personal attack. You understand that their behavior is rooted in their own limitations, their own state of consciousness, and it has nothing to do with your intrinsic worth. This detachment allows you to respond to life, not react. When you are emotionally attached to an outcome, when you expect something from others, you are setting yourself up for disappointment. Attachment is a form of expectation, and expectation often leads to frustration when those expectations are not met. Detachment frees you from the burden of these expectations. It allows you to meet others where they are without needing them to change. It gives you the freedom to act from a place of inner peace rather than fear, desire, or need. Moreover, detachment enables you to let go of what no longer serves you. When you are detached, you can discern what is truly valuable in your life and what is not. You can see relationships, situations, and circumstances for what they truly are, without the filters of attachment or need. You stop holding on to things out of fear or insecurity. You stop trying to control the uncontrollable. And in this space of freedom, you discover your true strength. Detachment is not the same as apathy. Apathy is the absence of feeling, the shutting down of connection. Detachment, on the other hand, allows you to feel deeply but without becoming overwhelmed by those feelings. It allows you to experience the world fully, yet with the wisdom to know that nothing outside of you has the power to define your inner state. You can love, you can give, you can care deeply, but you do so from a place of freedom, knowing that your worth is not dependent on the return of that love or the appreciation of your actions. You must ask yourself, is this relationship worth my energy? Sometimes, investing your energy wisely means making hard choices, letting go of relationships, situations, or environments that drain you. It means choosing to honor your own needs and well-being, rather than sacrificing yourself to please others. It means saying no when you need to say no, and protecting your energy from being depleted. This may feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you have been accustomed to giving freely, but over time, you will come to realize that this is an act of self-love. As you begin to honor the investment of your energy, you will notice a shift in the way people respond to you. When you stop overextending yourself to those who take you for granted, you begin to attract those who truly value and respect your energy. You will find yourself in relationships and situations that nurture your spirit, that align with your highest good, and that create a sense of mutual respect and harmony. Your energy will no longer be scattered, but will become a focused, intentional force that propels you forward on your path. Finally, understanding that energy is an investment allows you to trust the flow of life. When you invest your energy with awareness, you begin to trust that the right people and opportunities will come into your life at the right time. You do not need to chase after validation, recognition, or affection. You understand that your energy, when placed in the right places, will bring you everything you need. It will bring you growth, fulfillment, and a deep sense of alignment with your true purpose. In summary, when you begin to view your energy as an investment, you step into a place of conscious power. You no longer give away your energy without thought. Instead, you make intentional choices about where and how to invest your life force. By doing so, you create a life that is in alignment with your true self, a life that is nourishing, fulfilling, and deeply connected to your highest purpose. Respect is one of the most fundamental pillars of any healthy relationship, whether it's personal, professional, or even casual. It is the invisible thread that binds individuals together in a space of mutual understanding, trust, and honor. Yet, despite its importance, respect is often misunderstood or taken for granted. We might believe that respect is something that should be given freely, without question, to those we care about. However, true respect is not one-sided. It is an exchange, a mutual recognition of each other's worth, boundaries, and needs. When we speak of respect in the context of relationships, we often focus on how we show respect for others, but it is equally important to recognize that respect must be given and received in balance. It is not enough to simply offer respect without expecting it in return. When respect is not mutual, when it flows only in one direction, the relationship becomes imbalanced, and this imbalance can create dissatisfaction, resentment, and a sense of being undervalued. In relationships where respect is not mutual, one person often ends up feeling invisible, unheard, or unappreciated. This imbalance may manifest in many forms, from emotional neglect to disregard for personal boundaries to ignoring someone's time and energy. It is easy to give away our respect and energy to others, believing that this is an act of kindness or love. But when the other person does not reciprocate this respect, we begin to feel drained, frustrated, and confused. We may even begin to question our own worth. Respect must flow both ways for a relationship to thrive. It is a fundamental law of human connection. Just as we must honor the worth and dignity of others, so too must we expect the same from them. Without mutual respect, a relationship lacks the foundation to grow, evolve, and deepen. It remains shallow and vulnerable to misunderstandings, hurt, and even dissolution. When you are in a relationship, whether personal or professional, where respect is not mutual, it is crucial to understand that the dynamic is not sustainable. No matter how much you give, how much you sacrifice, or how much you bend to accommodate the other person's needs, if respect is not reciprocated, you will ultimately feel the strain. This is because your emotional energy is being invested in a space where it cannot flourish. Respect is not a commodity that can be one-sided. It is a relational exchange, and if the flow of respect is disrupted, the relationship becomes one-sided, exhausting, and ultimately unfulfilling. One of the most telling signs that respect is no longer mutual is when communication begins to break down. Communication is the primary vehicle through which respect is expressed. When respect is present, people listen to each other. They validate each other's thoughts, emotions, and experiences. But when respect is lacking, communication becomes lopsided. One person is doing all the talking, while the other is silent or dismissive. One person's words are constantly disregarded, while the others are elevated. In such an environment, it becomes increasingly difficult to connect on a deeper level. The imbalance creates a rift, a distance, and the relationship begins to fray. Respect is also about boundaries. Boundaries are essential to maintaining a healthy relationship, as they define where one person ends and another begins. When respect is mutual, both individuals understand and honor each other's boundaries. They know what is acceptable and what is not. But when respect is not mutual, boundaries are often ignored or trampled. One person may continuously push the other's limits, dismiss their needs, or disregard their feelings. This lack of respect for boundaries creates tension and emotional turmoil. In situations where respect is not mutual, it is essential to recognize that it is not a reflection of your worth. Often, when we are disrespected or ignored, we internalize this treatment. We begin to think that we are unworthy, that we do not deserve respect, or that there is something inherently wrong with us. When you are not being treated with respect, it is important to remember that you are not the problem. The issue lies in the other person's perception, their inability to recognize the inherent worth that you carry. Respect must be mutual for any relationship to flourish. When respect is not present on both sides, it is impossible to maintain a harmonious connection. You cannot continue to invest your time, energy, and emotions into someone who does not see you, value you, or treat you with dignity. To do so is to dishonor yourself. By allowing yourself to be in a relationship where respect is not mutual, you are effectively telling the world that your worth is negotiable. You are saying that it is acceptable for your boundaries to be crossed, your emotions to be disregarded, and your needs to be ignored. The process of restoring mutual respect begins with self-awareness. You must first recognize the imbalance. You must see clearly when respect is flowing only in one direction. This is not always easy because, at times, we may feel so attached to a person or situation that we excuse their behavior, dismiss our own needs, or fail to acknowledge our own worth. But true respect starts with self-respect. It begins with recognizing that you are deserving of dignity, understanding, and care just as much as anyone else. Once you become aware of the imbalance, it is essential to set boundaries. You must communicate your needs clearly and directly. If you feel that you are not being treated with respect, you must express this to the other person. This is not about being confrontational or angry. It is about standing in your truth and asserting your right to be valued. Sometimes, the other person may not even realize the lack of respect they are showing. Other times, they may be fully aware and are testing your boundaries. In either case, it is important to speak up and make it clear that mutual respect is non-negotiable. Setting boundaries also means being willing to walk away from relationships or situations that do not honor you. If the other person is unwilling to respect you, despite your efforts to communicate and assert your needs, then it may be necessary to distance yourself. This does not mean that you do not care about the person. It means that you care about yourself enough to protect your own emotional well-being. Relationships that do not have mutual respect are toxic and ultimately harmful to both individuals involved. In summary, respect is the foundation of any meaningful relationship, and it must be mutual. When respect flows both ways, the relationship becomes a space of growth, connection, and harmony. But when respect is lacking, the relationship becomes imbalanced, draining, and ultimately unfulfilling. To maintain healthy relationships, we must first cultivate self-respect and set clear boundaries. We must be willing to demand respect for ourselves and give respect to others in return. Only then can we create relationships that are built on a foundation of equality, dignity, and mutual care. In conclusion, the journey of understanding how to navigate relationships, both with others and with ourselves, requires a deep and consistent awareness of how we invest our energy, how we maintain our boundaries, and how we ensure mutual respect in every connection. We live in a world that often encourages us to seek validation from outside sources, to chase after approval, and to give freely without considering the cost to our own well-being. But when we learn to recognize the price of ignoring ourselves, the price of giving our energy, time, and emotions to people or situations that do not honor us, we begin to reclaim our power. Detachment from external outcomes, when practiced consciously, allows us to release the need for validation and to preserve our inner peace. It is not about retreating from life, but about creating the space within ourselves to remain grounded, no matter the external circumstances. When we begin to recognize that our energy is an investment, we understand that not every person, situation, or relationship deserves our time or emotional currency. We learn to give our energy to what nurtures us, what aligns with our purpose, and what allows us to grow and thrive. Ultimately, respect must be mutual. Without mutual respect, no relationship can stand the test of time or offer the depth of connection that we seek. When we recognize that respect flows both ways, that it is not a one-sided transaction, we honor ourselves and others in a way that strengthens the very bonds we seek to create. It is through mutual respect that we find understanding, compassion, and alignment with the people who truly value us. The path to emotional freedom, clarity, and fulfillment lies in the conscious recognition of where we invest our energy, where we place our respect, and how we honor ourselves in the process. By learning the price of ignoring our own worth, we reclaim our lives, our relationships, and our peace. We are no longer at the mercy of the world's expectations, but rather, we become the architects of our own experience. May we all have the wisdom to recognize when to detach, the strength to honor our own energy, and the courage to demand and give respect where it is truly deserved. In doing so, we create relationships and lives that are aligned with our highest truth.